Now, Donald Trump has made his stance pretty clear. Europe must defend itself. He's now launched a fresh attack on the EU, and this comes as the European capitals are feeling ignored after Washington sidelined them and opened a direct line with their enemy number one, that's Moscow. And today's NATO security architecture faces its most serious test. If the United States scales back its commitment, the question is obviously this: how does NATO fare against Russia in a head-to-head military confrontation?
In 2022, when Russia launched a full-scale invasion of Ukraine, it confronted the Western alliance with a threat they felt they had left behind in the past: a full-out conventional land war on the European continent. Since then, NATO has scrambled to present a united front to Kyiv. Its member states have plied Kyiv with weapons and enforced the most severe economic sanctions ever imposed on a major economy. But today the situation seems to have changed radically.
The European Union's it was formed in order to screw the United States. I mean, look, let's be honest. The European Union was formed in order to screw the United States. That's the purpose of it.
The Oval Office under President Donald Trump is threading a new path, one that leads to Moscow bypassing Europe. To say Europe is in panic mode is to put it mildly. The specter of American forces leaving Europe and even removing its nuclear weapons has jolted the alliance. European countries currently rely on the US within the NATO alliance for a range of supporting capabilities and assets that allow combat forces to operate effectively. That dependency now looks increasingly precarious.
Putin's aggression does not stop in Ukraine. Russian spy ships menace our waters. Russian planes enter our airspace. Russian cyber attacks hit our NHS.
Especially after the statements from Washington last week, it is clear that we Europeans must now be able to act very quickly, that Europeans must also organize their own defense capability very quickly. This is an issue that has absolute priority in the coming weeks.
The big question is, can the combined forces of Europe take on Vladimir Putin's Russia? On paper, NATO holds the advantage. Its combined forces dwarf Russia's in sheer numbers, over 7.6 million active personnel compared to Russia's 3.5 million. The collective military capabilities of the 32 countries outnumber Russia in terms of aircraft. Again, in terms of armored vehicles, NATO has more than 5 times than Russia. In the sea, too, the Western military bloc has a definite edge, but raw numbers don't tell the whole story. Russia holds the edge in strategic positioning and doctrine. Its forces are battle-hardened after years of warfare in Ukraine. Its defense industry, under relentless sanctions, has adapted to produce cost-effective, rugged military hardware. Its missile forces, particularly hypersonic weapons, like the Avangard and Kinzhal, can strike deep into NATO territory, while its vast artillery and electronic warfare capabilities outmatch anything in the continent, if American support is removed. Meanwhile, NATO's European members suffer from chronic underfunding. Many armies lack ammunition stockpiles for sustained conflict. Germany's tank force is barely operational. And the UK's army is at its smallest since Napoleonic times. The alliance is fragmented politically, with leaders unable to agree on military spending, let alone strategy. Without the US, NATO's deterrence weakens dramatically. European forces would struggle to counter a determined Russian offensive in the Baltics. The question is no longer whether NATO can win a war against Russia, it's whether, without Washington, it can even fight one. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.